Taeyang sat in the corner of the meeting room, watching the aliens talk about him like he wasn't there. They did this often. The Galactic Council representatives thought humans were stupid because they smiled too much and tried to make friends with everyone. Taeyang kept his face calm and continued listening. Commander Vectis stood at the front of the room. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that looked like metal, and 4 arms that moved too fast when he talked. His species, the Halorites, ran most of the mining operations in this part of the galaxy. They were efficient, cold, and didn't like humans very much. The equipment on the southern continent is worth millions of credits, Vectis said, his voice making a clicking sound that the translator in Taeyang's ear turned into words. We need it back. But the journey is too dangerous for valuable personnel. Taeyang knew what that meant. He was not valuable personnel. He was human. And humans were the newest species in the galaxy. They were only here because they were willing to do jobs that other species considered too risky or too dirty. Another alien spoke up. This one was shorter and covered in green fur. Her name was Pelixia, and she managed the colony's resources. 3 expeditions have gone to the southern continent. None came back. The Ravagers killed them all. The room grew quiet. Everyone knew about the Ravagers. They were the apex predators of Varos 7, the planet where the mining colony existed. The reports said they were massive beasts, bigger than Earth elephants, with armor like tanks and teeth that could bite through steel. They killed everything that entered their territory. Send a drone, someone suggested. We tried, Vectis replied. The electromagnetic storms in the southern region destroy all electronics within hours. We need someone who can go in, repair the equipment on site, and bring it back manually. That's suicide, another alien said. Vectis turned his 4 eyes toward Taeyang. That's why we're sending the human. Taeyang felt every alien in the room look at him. Some looked away quickly, uncomfortable. Others stared with cold calculation. A few seemed almost sad. But nobody objected. Nobody said it was wrong to send him to die. He stood up slowly. When do I leave? Vectis showed what might have been satisfaction on his alien face. Tomorrow morning. You'll take a small shuttle with basic supplies. The equipment location is already programmed into your navigation system. Repair it and bring it back. If you succeed, you'll receive a bonus of 10,000 credits. If he succeeded. They all knew he wouldn't. 10,000 credits was a fortune to Taeyang, but it meant nothing if he was dead. I'll need tools, Taeyang said, and extra food rations. Approved, Vectis said quickly. Too quickly. He wanted Taeyang gone before he changed his mind. The meeting ended. As the aliens filed out, one human approached Taeyang. His name was Doyun, another engineer who had been working at the colony for 2 years. He grabbed Taeyang's arm. Don't do this, Doyun said quietly. It's murder. They're sending you to die because they think humans are expendable. Taeyang smiled, though he didn't feel happy. I know. Then why go? Because if I don't, they'll send another human. Maybe you. Maybe someone else. And I have a better chance than most. Taeyang had grown up in the mountains of Korea, hiking dangerous trails with his father. He knew how to survive in wild places. He knew how to stay calm when everything went wrong. Doyun looked like he wanted to argue more, but he just shook his head. I'll pack your supplies myself. Good luck, brother. That night, Taeyang didn't sleep much. He sat in his small quarters, looking at pictures on his tablet. His family back on Earth. His mother and father. His younger sister. They didn't know he'd taken this job. They thought he was doing safe construction work on a peaceful colony. He wondered if he'd ever see them again. The next morning came too fast. Taeyang stood in the shuttle bay, checking his equipment one last time. Doyun had packed everything carefully. Tools, food, water purification tablets, medical supplies, a plasma cutter, climbing gear, and a weapon that probably wouldn't do much against a Ravager, but made him feel slightly better. He also had Arya, an AI assistant in tablet form. She wasn't very smart compared to military AI systems, but she could help with navigation, translation, and basic analysis. Her voice sounded kind, which Taeyang appreciated. "Ready for departure, Taeyang," Arya said. "Weather conditions are acceptable. Flight time to the southern continent is approximately 4 hours." Commander Vectis came to see him off, along with a few other aliens who managed the colony. They stood at a safe distance, as if his bad luck might be contagious. "Remember," Vectis said, "the equipment is in the old mining facility. Coordinates already loaded. Repair the primary excavator and the 3 processor units. If you can't repair them, salvage what you can." They didn't expect him back at all. Taeyang could see it in their eyes. "Understood," he said. He climbed into the shuttle. It was small, barely big enough for one person and some cargo. The controls were simple. As the engines powered up, Taeyang looked out the window one last time. Doyun stood apart from the other aliens, hand raised in farewell. Taeyang raised his hand back. Then the shuttle lifted off. The flight was smooth at first. The northern continent, where the colony existed, was relatively safe, with cleared landing zones and weather stations. But as Taeyang flew south, everything changed. The sky turned darker, filled with red and purple clouds that sparked with lightning. The shuttle shook as it entered the storm systems. "Electromagnetic interference increasing," Arya warned. "I may lose function in another hour." "Save your power," Taeyang told her. "I'll need you on the ground." Below him, he could see the southern continent. It was beautiful and terrifying. Jungles glowed with bioluminescent plants. Crystal formations jutted from the ground like giant teeth. Rivers of something that wasn't quite water flowed in patterns that seemed impossible. And somewhere down there, the Ravagers were waiting. Taeyang found the landing zone near the abandoned mining facility. The shuttle touched down with a hard bump. When he opened the door, the air hit him like a physical force. It was hot and humid, filled with strange smells. In the distance, he heard sounds that made his skin crawl. Roars and screams, and things he couldn't identify. He grabbed his gear and stepped out onto alien soil. "Well," he said to nobody in particular, "let's see if I can survive this." When now, let's see. The mining facility was a 10-minute walk away. Every step, Taeyang expected something to jump out and kill him, but nothing did. Not yet. He reached the facility as the sun was setting. The equipment was there, just as Vectis had said, but it was in worse condition than the reports indicated. This wasn't going to take a few days. This was going to take at least 2 weeks. Taeyang set up his camp inside one of the buildings, sealing the doors as best he could. He ate a ration bar and drank some water. Arya's screen flickered. "Power at 60%, she said. "The storms are affecting me. Rest," Taeyang told her. "Tomorrow we start working." He lay down on his sleeping mat, listening to the sounds of the alien jungle outside. Somewhere out there, the creatures that had killed 3 expeditions were hunting. Taeyang closed his eyes and tried not to think about the fact that he would probably never see Earth again. The first 2 days passed without incident. Taeyang worked on the mining equipment during daylight hours and sealed himself inside the building at night. He heard things moving outside in the darkness. Large things, but nothing tried to break in. The equipment was damaged worse than he'd thought. The main excavator had a cracked power core. 2 of the processor units had corroded circuits from the humid air. The 3rd processor was partially buried under rocks from a small landslide. Every repair took twice as long as it should because he had to work carefully with limited tools. Arya helped when she could, but the electromagnetic storms kept disrupting her systems. Sometimes, she would shut down for hours. Taeyang found himself talking to her anyway, even when she couldn't respond. The sound of his own voice made him feel less alone. On the 3rd morning, everything changed. Taeyang was outside, using the plasma cutter to remove a damaged panel from the excavator. The jungle around him was alive with noise. Birds that weren't really birds made strange whistling sounds. Insects the size of his hand buzzed through the air. Small creatures moved in the undergrowth. Then, suddenly, everything went quiet. Taeyang had spent enough time in wild places to know what that meant. Predator nearby. Big predator. He turned slowly, hand moving toward the weapon at his belt. His heart hammered in his chest. The jungle at the edge of the clearing rustled. Something was coming. It stepped out of the trees, and Taeyang forgot how to breathe. The Ravager was bigger than the reports had said. Much bigger. Its body was covered in armored scales that shimmered with colors like oil on water, blues and purples and greens shifting as it moved. 6 eyes, arranged in 2 rows of 3, glowed golden in the shadow of the trees. Its head was massive, with a jaw that could easily fit a human inside. 4 legs, each as thick as tree trunks, carried it forward. A long tail dragged behind it, studded with bony spikes. When it breathed, Taeyang could see the air shimmer with heat from its nostrils. This was it. This was how he died. The Ravager moved closer. Each step shook the ground. Taeyang could smell it now. A sharp scent, like hot metal, and something organic he couldn't name. The creature's eyes focused on him, all 6 at once. Every instinct screamed at Taeyang to run. But he'd watched nature documentaries his whole life. He'd learned from his father about wild animals. Running triggered the chase instinct. Running meant death. Instead, Taeyang did something that felt insane. He slowly lowered himself to the ground, making his body smaller. He turned his head to the side, avoiding direct eye contact, and he spoke. "Hey there," he said softly in Korean. His voice shook, but he kept talking. "You're a big one, aren't you? I'm not here to hurt you. I'm just trying to fix some equipment and go home." The Ravager stopped. Its head tilted slightly, the way a dog might tilt its head at an unexpected sound. Taeyang kept his voice calm and steady. "I know this is your territory. I'm sorry for being here. I'll be gone soon. Just need a little time." The creature took another step closer. Taeyang could feel its breath now, hot and humid. It smelled him, nostrils flaring. Up close, he could see that its scales weren't just armor. They had patterns etched into them, like someone had carved designs. The patterns were beautiful. Slowly, carefully, Taeyang reached into his pocket. The Ravager's eyes tracked the movement, but it didn't attack. He pulled out a ration bar. One of the protein-heavy ones that tasted like cardboard, but had lots of calories. "Want some?" He unwrapped it slowly, and held it out on his palm. Arm extended, but not too far. "It's not great, but it's food." For a long moment, nothing happened. The Ravager stared at the ration bar. Then its massive head lowered. A tongue, surprisingly delicate, reached out and took the bar from his hand. The creature ate it, wrapper and all, crunching the plastic like it was nothing. Taeyang let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. The Ravager didn't leave. It sat down, haunches settling onto the ground with a heavy thump, and it watched him. "Okay," Taeyang said. "You're just going to watch me work? I can do that." He stood up slowly, movements careful and non-threatening. The Ravager's eyes followed him, but it made no aggressive moves. Taeyang walked back to the excavator and picked up his tools. His hands were shaking. "Arya," he whispered. "You seeing this?" The tablet flickered. Arya's voice came through, weak but present. "Confirmed. 1 Ravager, adult specimen. Taeyang, you should retreat to the building. It's between me and the building," he said quietly. "Besides, if it wanted me dead, I'd already be dead." He went back to work, trying to ignore the massive predator sitting 20 feet away. Every few minutes, he glanced over. The Ravager was still there, still watching. It seemed curious more than aggressive. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. Taeyong's fear slowly shifted to something else. Not quite comfort, but acceptance. The creature wasn't attacking. It was just there. Around midday, Taeyong stopped for lunch. He sat down on a rock and opened another ration bar. The Ravager's head lifted, eyes focusing on the food. Taeyong smiled despite himself. Want another one? He held out the bar. The Ravager stood and walked over, movements surprisingly graceful for something so large. It took the ration bar gently and ate it. Then it sat down again, this time closer. Close enough that Taeyong could touch it if he wanted. He didn't touch it. Not yet. But he kept talking. You know, you're not what the reports said. They called you mindless killing machines. But you're smart, aren't you? I can see it in your eyes. You're thinking, watching, learning. The Ravager made a sound, a low rumble that came from deep in its chest. Not a growl exactly. Something else. I'm going to call you Baram, Taeyong said. It means wind, in my language. Because you moved so quietly out of the jungle. What do you think? Baram rumbled again. Taeyong decided to take it as approval. That afternoon, something happened that Taeyong would later describe as impossible. He was trying to move a heavy piece of equipment, something that weighed at least 200 pounds. He'd been planning to use the plasma cutter to break it into smaller pieces, but that would take hours. Baram stood up and walked over. The creature nudged him aside gently with its massive head, then grabbed the equipment in its jaws. It lifted it like the weight was nothing and carried it to where Taeyong needed it. Thank you, Taeyong said, too surprised to say anything else. Baram set the equipment down carefully and returned to its watching spot. Over the next few days, a routine developed. Taeyong would work on the mining equipment during the day. Baram would watch, and sometimes help by moving heavy objects. Taeyong shared his rations, though he was running low. At night, Taeyong slept in the building, but he left the door open. Baram curled up outside. A massive guardian. Once, in the middle of the night, Taeyong heard sounds of a fight. He looked outside to see Baram driving away a pack of smaller predators that had been creeping toward the building. By the end of the first week, Taeyong realized something impossible had happened. He'd made a friend. A real friend, not just a tame animal. Baram was intelligent. The creature understood him, responded to him, even seemed to enjoy his company. Taeyong spent his evenings studying Baram, taking notes on his tablet when Arya had power. The creature's scales changed color based on mood. Darker when alert, lighter when relaxed. The patterns on the scales seemed to be unique, like fingerprints. And Baram communicated through body language and different types of rumbles and growls. The other expeditions got it all wrong, Taeyong told Arya one night. They came in with weapons and loud machines during breeding season. They threatened the Ravagers. No wonder they were attacked. You may be right, Arya said. But how will you convince the others? Taeyong looked at Baram, who was sleeping with its head resting on its front paws. I don't know yet, but I have to try. The repairs were finally done. 2 weeks of hard work, but the equipment was functional again. Taeyong stood back and looked at his accomplishment. Then, he looked at Baram. The creature had been watching him all day. And Taeyong realized, Baram knew something was different. The work was done. That meant leaving. Taeyong spent the last night at the mining facility, sitting outside with Baram. The equipment was loaded and ready. Tomorrow, he would fly back to the colony. His mission was complete. He'd survived what was supposed to be a suicide run. But he felt miserable. Baram lay beside him, close enough that Taeyong could feel the warmth radiating from the creature's massive body. Over 2 weeks, they developed a bond that Taeyong didn't fully understand but couldn't deny. This wasn't like having a pet. This was friendship. I have to go back tomorrow, Taeyong said quietly. He'd gotten used to talking to Baram, even though the creature couldn't answer with words. Back to the other aliens who think I'm disposable. Baram made a low sound, almost like a whine. The creature's scales had darkened to a deep blue. The color Taeyang had learned meant sadness or distress. "I don't want to leave you either," Taeyang admitted. He reached out slowly and, for the first time, touched Bahram's scaled head. The armor was warm and surprisingly smooth. Bahram leaned into his hand like a cat seeking affection. Taeyang had been thinking about this moment for days. He'd watched how Bahram behaved. The creature was young, he'd figured out. Not a baby, but not fully grown either. And Bahram was alone. In all their time together, no other Ravagers had come. Bahram had no pack. "You were cast out, weren't you?" Taeyang said. "That's why you're alone. The others rejected you for some reason." Taeyang. Bahram's 6 eyes blinked slowly. Taeyang had learned that slow blinks meant trust and contentment. An idea had been forming in Taeyang's mind. A crazy, dangerous, probably stupid idea. But he couldn't shake it. "What if you came with me?" he asked. "What if I brought you back to the colony?" Arya's screen lit up immediately. "Taeyang, that would be extremely unwise. The colony authorities would view a Ravager as a threat. They might try to kill Bahram. They might arrest you." "I know," Taeyang said. "But I can't just leave him here alone. He helped me. He saved my life when those other predators attacked. He's my friend. Bringing an apex predator to a civilian colony violates multiple Galactic Council regulations," Arya continued. "You could face criminal charges." Taeyang looked at Bahram. The creature was watching him with those intelligent golden eyes. "Would you want to come with me? To a strange place with lots of other beings who aren't like us?" Bahram stood up and moved closer, pressing against Taeyang's side. The message was clear. "Then we go together," Taeyang decided. The next morning came too quickly. Taeyang packed up his camp and secured all the repaired equipment. The shuttle was designed to carry cargo, but it wasn't designed to carry a 12-foot-tall alien predator. Still, the cargo bay was large, and if Bahram curled up tight, "Come on, friend," Taeyang said, opening the cargo bay wide. "I won't lie to you. This is going to be uncomfortable and scary, but I promise I'll keep you safe." Bahram approached the shuttle cautiously. The creature had never seen anything like it. The engines made Bahram's scales flash with nervous orange colors, but when Taeyang climbed inside and called out, Bahram followed. It was a tight fit. Bahram had to curl into an almost impossible position, tail wrapped around body, head tucked low. The creature barely fit, and there was no room left for the equipment. Taeyang had to leave some of it behind, which would make Vectis angry. But he didn't care. "Good," Taeyang said, stroking Bahram's head. "I'm going to close the bay now. Stay calm. I'll be right up front, and I'll talk to you the whole way. Okay?" Bahram rumbled softly. Taeyang closed the cargo bay and climbed into the pilot's seat. His hands were shaking as he started the engines. The flight back was the longest 4 hours of Taeyang's life. The shuttle shook as it passed through the electromagnetic storms. The cargo bay wasn't meant for living creatures, so there was no climate control back there. Taeyang worried constantly about whether Bahram had enough air, whether the creature was too hot or too cold, whether the stress would cause Bahram to panic. He kept the internal comms open and talked continuously. "We're through the worst of the storms now. About 2 more hours. You're doing great, Bahram. Just stay calm. I know it's scary. I know this is all new. But we're going to be okay. I promise." Sometimes Bahram made sounds in response. Sometimes the creature was silent. Taeyang had no way to check on his friend without landing, and landing in the wilderness would waste time and fuel. As they approached the colony, Arya spoke up. "Taeyang, I must warn you one final time. When they scan the shuttle, they will detect a large life form. There will be immediate alarm. Security will be waiting. This could end very badly." "I know," Taeyang said, "but it's too late to turn back now." The colony appeared on the horizon. The northern continent looked peaceful and civilized compared to the wild southern lands. Taeyang contacted the landing control tower. This is Shuttle 7-9, Engineer Taeyang returning from Southern Continent mission. Requesting landing clearance. There was a pause. Then a voice responded, sounding surprised. Shuttle 7-9. We weren't expecting you to return. Please confirm your identity. Confirmed. Engineer Taeyang. I have the repaired equipment. Well, most of it. Another pause. Longer this time. Stand by for scanner sweep. Taeyang's heart pounded. This was it. In seconds, they would know about Bahram. The scanners swept over his shuttle. Alarms started blaring immediately. The voice on the comm returned, now filled with panic. Shuttle 7-9. Our scans detect a large organism in your cargo bay. Identify. Immediately. It's not hostile, Taeyang said quickly. I repeat, the organism is not hostile. It's with me. It's friendly. Negative, Shuttle 7-9. Do not, I repeat. Do not land until security clears you. Maintain altitude and wait for instructions. But Taeyang was already descending. He'd come too far to wait in the sky while they argued. Sorry. Control. I'm low on fuel, and my passenger needs to get out of that cargo bay. I'm coming in. One. On the parted. You are not authorized. We will shoot you down. They wouldn't, Taeyang bet. He had equipment worth millions of credits on board. They wouldn't risk destroying it. He brought the shuttle down to the main landing pad despite the protests screaming through his comm. As the landing gear touched down, Taeyang saw what was waiting for him. At least 20 aliens stood in a semicircle around the landing pad. Most of them were security forces, holding weapons that crackled with energy. Commander Vectis was there, all 4 arms gesturing angrily. Some other humans were there too. He could see Do-Yun and He-Jin, the xenobiologist he'd met a few times. Everyone looked terrified. Taeyang shut down the engines and sat still for a moment. Okay, Bahram, he said into the comm. This is going to be rough, but I need you to trust me. Don't attack anyone. Don't act aggressive. Just stay close to me. And be calm. Can you do that? Bahram rumbled, a sound that came clearly through the internal speakers. Good friend, Taeyang said. Let's go meet the neighbors. He opened the pilot door and stepped out. Immediately, at least 10 weapons pointed at him. Vectis's voice cut through the noise. Engineer Taeyang, step away from the shuttle immediately. Our scanners detect a ravager in your cargo bay. Explain yourself. I can explain, Taeyang said, raising his hands. But first, let me get my friend out of there. He's been cramped in that bay for 4 hours. He's uncomfortable. Your friend? Vectis's translator couldn't quite handle the shrieking quality of his voice. You brought a ravager here? Have you lost your mind? We're creasing that. We're closing. Vectis's translator. We're closing that. Probably, Taeyang admitted. But I'm opening the cargo bay now. Please don't shoot. He's not dangerous unless you threaten him. Do not open that bay, Vectis commanded. Taeyang opened it anyway. He pressed the release button, and the cargo bay door began to lower like a ramp. He could hear Bahram inside, moving around, making anxious sounds. Easy, Taeyang called. Easy, friend. Come on out. Slow and calm, Bahram appeared at the top of the ramp. The afternoon sun hit those armored scales, making them shimmer with brilliant colors. At full height, the creature looked massive and terrifying. Those 6 golden eyes scanned the crowd of aliens, and Bahram's jaws opened slightly, showing teeth the size of knives. Aliens screamed. Some ran. The security forces backed up, weapons shaking in their hands or appendages or whatever they used to hold things. Only the humans held steady. Though even He-Jin looked pale, Bahram walked down the ramp slowly, staying close to Taeyang. The creature's scales were flickering between colors, orange anxiety mixed with defensive red. Taeyang could read Bahram's mood now. and he knew his friend was scared and overwhelmed by all the noise and strange beings. "It's okay," Taeyang said softly, reaching up to touch Bahram's side. "You're safe. I'm here." The simple gesture made several aliens gasp. Taeyang stood next to a creature that could kill him with one bite, touching it like it was a pet dog. To them, it must have looked insane. Commander Vectis found his voice first. "Security. Prepare to fire." "No." Taeyang stepped in front of Bahram, spreading his arms wide. "Move aside, human," Vectis commanded. "That creature killed 3 expeditions. It's a monster." "He's not a monster," Taeyang shouted back. "His name is Bahram, and he's intelligent. The previous expeditions were killed because they came in with weapons and loud machines during breeding season. They threatened the Ravagers first." Heijin stepped forward from the crowd, tablet in hand. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied alien life. Her eyes were wide, but curious, rather than just afraid. "With him," Taeyang corrected. "Yes, for 2 weeks. Bahram helped me repair the equipment. He protected me from other predators. He's my friend." Doyun had moved closer too, staying at a safer distance but watching with amazement. "Brother, this is insane. That thing could eat you." "He could," Taeyang agreed. Taeyang turned to face Bahram. The creature's 6 eyes focused on him immediately. "Sit," Taeyang said, using the command he'd taught over the past few days while working. He made the hand gesture that went with it. Bahram sat, haunches settling onto the landing pad with a heavy thump. The crowd murmured in shock. "Good boy," Taeyang said, pulling out his last ration bar. He held it up, and Bahram gently took it from his hand, eating it carefully. Then Taeyang did something that made several aliens faint. He hugged Bahram's massive head, pressing his face against those armored scales. Bahram made a rumbling sound. The happy sound Taeyang knew meant contentment. The creature's scales shifted to calmer blues and greens. Heijin's jaw had dropped. She was recording everything on her tablet. "Remarkable," she whispered. "Commander Vectis, I recommend we don't shoot. This is the first recorded case of peaceful contact with a Ravager. We need to study this. Study it." Vectis waved all 4 arms in agitation. "That creature is a threat to colony security. It needs to be destroyed." "Ravaw, then you'll destroy me too," Taeyang said firmly. "Because I'm not letting you hurt him." A new voice joined the argument. "Nobody is destroying anything yet." Everyone turned. Floating through the air came Quilmara, the Galactic Council representative for this sector. She looked like a jellyfish made of light, with tentacles that trailed energy. Her species, the Quill, were known for being fair and careful in their judgments. "Quilmara," Vectis said quickly. "This human has violated multiple protocols. He brought a dangerous predator into a civilian zone." "Perhaps," Quilmara said, her voice like wind chimes. "But he also survived a mission that 3 other expeditions failed. He completed the objective and returned alive. These facts deserve consideration." Whence to Kantan, she floated closer to Taeyang and Bahram. The Ravager watched her, but didn't move aggressively. "Engineer Taeyang, you claim this creature is intelligent and non-hostile?" "Yes, ma'am," Taeyang said. "I have 2 weeks of video documentation. Bahram helped me work. He protected me. He follows commands. He's not a mindless beast." "Show me," Quilmara commanded. Taeyang pulled out his tablet. Despite the electromagnetic damage, he'd managed to preserve most of his recordings. He showed Quilmara and the gathering crowd footage of Bahram moving heavy equipment, video of the creature defending him from a pack of smaller predators, recordings of them eating together, of Bahram sleeping peacefully outside the building. Heijin was watching the videos with intense focus. "Commander, look at this." The Ravager responds to verbal commands and hand gestures. It demonstrates problem-solving behavior. "And look here. When those other predators attacked, it positioned itself between them and Taeyang. That's protective behavior. Intelligent, purposeful, action. More aliens had gathered now, curious despite their fear. Some of the station's scientists joined Heijin, discussing in excited voices. The security forces still held their weapons ready, but they looked uncertain now. Quilmara studied the videos in silence for a long time. Finally, she spoke. This changes things. Commander Vectis, I'm ordering a temporary hold on any aggressive action. We need proper investigation. You can't be serious, Vectis protested. I am completely serious. If the Ravagers are intelligent, if they can be communicated with, then our previous encounters might have been tragic misunderstandings, not simple predator attacks. This has massive implications for our presence on Varos 7. She turned to Taeyang. However, the creature cannot roam freely. It must be contained while we study the situation. Baram stays with me, Taeyang said immediately. He's scared. All these strangers, the noise, the new environment. If you try to cage him without me, he'll panic. That's not acceptable, Vectis started to say, but Quilmara cut him off. Actually, it is. Engineer Taeyang clearly has a unique bond with this creature. Separating them could be disastrous. Taeyang, can you keep the Ravager calm and controlled? Yes, Taeyang said. As long as nobody threatens us. Quilmara's tentacles waved in what might have been agreement. Then here are my terms. You and the creature will stay in a secure area. Not a cage, but a cordoned zone, where the Ravager has space. Xenobiologist Heijin will lead a research team to study the situation. You will cooperate fully, and if at any point the creature becomes violent, security will respond with lethal force. Understood? It wasn't perfect, but it was better than watching Baram get shot. Understood, Taeyang agreed. This is madness, Vectis shouted. You're endangering the entire colony. I'm preventing a potential disaster, Quilmara replied calmly. If we kill this creature and later discover the Ravagers are intelligent, we will have committed murder. The Galactic Council takes such things very seriously. Would you like to be responsible for that, Commander? Vectis's blue skin darkened with anger, but he said nothing more. The next few hours were chaos. Engineers set up a large enclosed area in one of the empty warehouse spaces. It wasn't pretty, but it had room for Baram to move around. They brought in Taeyang's belongings and set up a small living space for him in one corner. Baram didn't like the new environment. The creature paced nervously, scales flickering with stressed colors. But Taeyang stayed close, talking constantly. And gradually, Baram calmed down. Heijin arrived with her research team as the sun was setting. Besides her, there were 3 other xenobiologists. 2 of them aliens Taeyang didn't recognize, and 1 human named Minho. They all kept a respectful distance, watching Baram with a mixture of fear and fascination. This is incredible, Heijin said, recording everything. Look at the scale patterns. Each one is unique, and the color changes. They're clearly communication of some kind. Mood indicators, Taeyang explained. Dark colors mean alert or worried. Light colors mean calm or happy. Red is aggressive or defensive. Orange is nervous. You learned all this in 2 weeks? Minho asked, impressed. I paid attention, Taeyang said, and Baram's a good teacher. Over the next few days, the research team studied Baram extensively. They used scanners and cameras, always from a safe distance. Heijin was particularly interested in how Baram responded to different situations. Try giving him a puzzle, she suggested. Something that requires problem solving. Taeyang set up a simple puzzle using boxes and food. He put a ration bar inside a sealed container that required pushing 3 buttons in sequence to open. Then, he showed it to Baram. The Ravager studied the container, sniffing it, pushing it with his nose. Then, deliberately, Baram pressed the 3 buttons in order. The container opened. Baram ate the reward, and looked at Taeyang as if to say, "Too easy." The research team was stunned. "That's tool use," Heijin said excitedly. "Complex problem solving. Abstract thinking. This creature isn't just smart. It's potentially sapient." More tests followed. Bahram passed every single one. Pattern recognition, memory tests, even basic mathematics using objects. The creature understood cause and effect, could plan ahead, and showed clear emotional responses. But the real breakthrough came on the 5th day, when something unexpected happened. During a routine scan, an old support beam in the warehouse ceiling cracked. It had been weakened by years of mining vibrations. The beam broke and started falling directly toward where Heijin and her team were standing. Everything happened in seconds. The support beam fell with a terrible shrieking sound of metal tearing. Heijin looked up and froze. Her team scattered, but they were too slow. The beam was massive, easily a ton of metal, and it was going to crush them. Bahram moved faster than anything that large should be able to move. The creature lunged forward, crossing the warehouse in huge bounds. Bahram reached the falling beam just before it hit the scientists and caught it on his armored back. The impact drove Bahram down to one knee, scales flashing with pain, but the creature held. Taeyang ran to help, grabbing one end of the beam. Together, they guided it down to the floor, away from the researchers. As soon as it was safe, Bahram collapsed, breathing heavily. Taeyang checked his friend frantically for injuries. "Are you hurt? Let me see." He ran his hands over Bahram's scales, looking for cracks or damage. The armor had held, but there would be bruising underneath. Bahram rumbled softly and licked Taeyang's face with that big tongue. Behind them, Heijin was on her knees, staring at Bahram with wide eyes. Her team gathered around her, all of them shaking from the close call. Security forces rushed in, weapons ready, but they stopped when they saw what had happened. He saved us," Heijin said quietly. "The Ravager saved our lives." Minho nodded, still pale. "We would have died. That beam would have killed at least 3 of us." The news spread through the colony within the hour. The Ravager that everyone feared, the creature they wanted destroyed, had saved the research team. Video footage from the warehouse cameras showed everything clearly. There was no doubt about what had happened. Quilmara called an emergency meeting that evening. This time, when Taeyang was summoned, they didn't make him leave Bahram behind. The two of them walked through the colony together, and aliens stepped aside to let them pass. Some still looked afraid, but others looked curious. A few even looked grateful. The meeting room was crowded. Commander Vectis was there, along with Quilmara, Heijin and her team, and representatives from various departments. Doyun stood near the back, giving Taeyang a supportive nod. Quilmara floated at the head of the table. "We have reached several conclusions based on the past week's events. First, xenobiologist Heijin, please present your findings." Heijin stood, tablet in hand. "After extensive testing and observation, my team has concluded that the creatures we call Ravagers demonstrate clear signs of sapience. They show complex problem-solving abilities, emotional depth, tool use, and abstract thinking. They're not animals. They're people." The room erupted in conversation. Quilmara raised a tentacle for silence. "Second, we have reviewed all records from the 3 previous expeditions to the southern continent. In each case, the expeditions arrived during Ravager breeding season with heavy machinery and weapons. The Ravagers' aggressive response was defensive, not predatory. They were protecting their nests." Vectis shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He'd authorized all 3 expeditions. "Third," Quilmara continued, "the Ravager called Bahram has demonstrated not just intelligence, but also altruism and heroism by saving our research team at risk to himself. This creature has shown more ethical behavior than some supposedly civilized species I could name." Several aliens looked embarrassed. "Therefore," Quilmara said, I am making the following recommendations to the Galactic Council. 1. The Ravagers of Varos 7 should be granted provisional sapient status, pending full investigation. 2. All mining operations in Ravager territory should cease immediately until proper diplomatic contact can be established. 3. Engineer Taeyang should be appointed as our first official liaison to the Ravager species, with full diplomatic privileges. What? Taeyang blurted out. Me? You have proven you can communicate with them, Quilmara said. You have their trust. Who else should we send? Commander Vectis finally spoke up. And what about the equipment we need? The mining operations we depend on? You're asking us to abandon millions of credits worth of investment. I'm asking you to avoid war with an intelligent species, Quilmara replied sharply. If we continue as we have been, the Ravagers will be entirely justified in defending their home. Do you want that on your conscience, Commander? Vectis had no answer. Heijin spoke again. Commander, with proper communication and negotiation, we might be able to reach agreements with the Ravagers. They might allow limited mining in certain areas in exchange for trade goods or technology. But we'll never know if we don't try. The meeting continued for hours, but the decision was already made. Taeyang was going back to the southern continent. This time, not as a disposable engineer on a suicide mission, but as an ambassador, and Bahram would go with him. The next week was a whirlwind of preparation. Taeyang received basic diplomatic training from Quilmara. Heijin prepared research materials and communication equipment. Doyun helped design a better camp that could serve as a base for long-term contact. Throughout it all, Bahram stayed close to Taeyang. The creature had become something of a celebrity in the colony. Aliens who'd been terrified now brought gifts. Food, shiny objects, even toys. Bahram accepted them all with patient dignity. One evening, Taeyang sat with Doyun in the warehouse, watching Bahram play with a large ball that some engineer had made. The creature rolled it around with surprising gentleness. You did it, brother, Doyun said. You survived what was supposed to kill you, and you changed everything. I got lucky, Taeyang said. I met the right individual at the right time. Bahram is special. Maybe, Doyun said. Or maybe you're special. Most people would have run or fought when they saw a Ravager. You tried to be friends instead. That's very human of you. Is it? Taeyang asked. Yeah. We humans, we're strange. We pack bond with anything. Dogs, cats, birds, even creatures that could kill us. Other species think it's weird. But maybe it's our greatest strength. We see people where others see threats. Taeyang watched Bahram playing and thought about that. Maybe Doyun was right. The day before departure, Commander Vectis came to see Taeyang. The alien stood at the entrance to the warehouse, not coming inside. His forearms were still, his posture neutral. Engineer Taeyang. Vectis said formally. Commander. Taeyang replied. There was a long silence. Finally, Vectis spoke. You were supposed to die. I was not Pete. I know. I sent you on that mission believing you would not return. I considered humans expendable. Vectis paused. I was wrong. Vectis, I was wrong. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was as close as Vectis could probably come. Don't thank me. I'm still not convinced humans are safe. You befriend dangerous things. You take foolish risks. You're unpredictable. Vectis looked at Bahram, who was watching the conversation with interest. But perhaps unpredictable isn't the same as useless. After Vectis left, Heijin came by with the final supply lists. You ready for this? She asked. No, Taeyang admitted. I'm about to try establishing diplomatic relations with an entire species. I'm not trained for this. I'm just an engineer. You're more than that now, Heijin said. You're a bridge between species. That's what humans do best, I think. We connect things that seem incompatible. The next morning, Taeyang and Bahram boarded a larger shuttle. one with proper space for both of them. Heijin and Minho were coming along as the science team. Doyun had wanted to come too, but someone needed to stay and keep an eye on things at the colony. "Don't do anything stupid," Doyun said, as they said goodbye. "Too late," Taeyang replied with a grin. The flight to the southern continent was completely different from the first time. Then, Taeyang had been alone and terrified, expecting to die. Now, he had friends with him, both human and otherwise. Now, he had hope. They landed near the original mining site, where Taeyang had first met Baram. As they set up the new base camp, Baram began making loud calling sounds, deep bellows that echoed across the jungle. "What's he doing?" Minho asked nervously. "Calling his family," Taeyang said. "I think he's telling them it's safe to come meet us." An hour later, they came. 3 more Ravagers emerged from the jungle. They were massive, larger than Baram. One of them had scarred scales and carried itself with clear authority. The leader, Taeyang guessed. Baram ran to them, and the Ravagers greeted each other with rumbling sounds and gentle headbutts. Then Baram led them toward the human camp. Taeyang stood his ground as 3 adult Ravagers approached. His heart pounded, but he kept his hands visible and his posture non-threatening. Behind him, Heijin and Minho were recording everything. "Hello," Taeyang said clearly. "My name is Taeyang. I come in peace. I'm here to be your friend, if you'll let me." The leader Ravager studied him with intelligent eyes. Then the creature did something that made Taeyang's breath catch. It lowered its massive head in a gesture that looked almost like a bow. Taeyang bowed back, and so began the real work. Over the following weeks, Taeyang learned to communicate with the Ravagers. They had a complex language of sounds, body postures, and scale color changes. With Arya's help and his own observations, he started to understand it. The Ravagers weren't mindless beasts. They were a civilization in their own right. They had families, territories, traditions. They'd been on Varos 7 far longer than any alien colony, and they were willing to talk, to negotiate, to share their world. News of the successful contact spread through the Galactic Council. Other species began to look at humans differently, not as disposable workers or dangerous primitives, but as valuable allies. Humans could go where others feared. They could make friends with anyone or anything. Humanity was formally invited to join the Galactic Council as full members. Not as servants or labor, but as equals. All because one engineer refused to abandon his friend. 6 months after his first mission, Taeyang stood on a ridge overlooking the southern continent. Baram stood beside him, both of them watching the sunset turn the crystal formations into rainbows of light. Below them, the new settlement bustled with activity. Humans, aliens, and Ravagers working together. "We did it," Taeyang said to his friend. "We changed the galaxy." Baram rumbled, a sound that Taeyang now understood meant contentment and pride. In the distance, a shuttle arrived carrying more diplomats and scientists. The work continued, but Taeyang knew the hardest part was over. They'd proven that different species could understand each other, could trust each other, could be family to each other. All it took was someone willing to try. Taeyang reached up and patted Baram's scaled shoulder. Together, the human and the Ravager walked down toward the settlement. Behind them, the Varos 7 sun set in a blaze of color. Ahead of them lay a future neither could have imagined. A future built on friendship, understanding, and the simple human belief that everyone deserves a chance to be known. The aliens had sent Taeyang to die alone in the wilderness. He'd returned with a friend, and changed the galaxy forever. And somewhere in the Galactic Council chambers, beings who'd thought humans were expendable were learning a hard lesson. Humans don't give up on their friends. Ever. And that made them the most dangerous and valuable species in the entire galaxy.